Journalism.
Yeah, journalism is the favorite.
Wow.
There are some speed
Fake
horses.
journalism or real journalism?
That'll be. I'm
Fake
sure
news?
that'll be talked. Yeah, no fake news. Journalism wins the Derby. I'm going to give that to Mike in case that happens.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's Chris Simms. It's Chris Simms Unbuttoned. Yo, yo, yo. We are here Monday after the Kentucky Derby.
Yep.
And, man, I mean, journalism ran a good race, but we got a real journalist right here next to us. I mean, the host of the Kentucky Derby. We are honored to have this guy here with us. I mean, he goes from telling the world about the greatest horses in the world, how awesome they are, to Monday, gloomy day back in the tri-state area with the biggest horse's ass he knows in Chris Simms. What's up, man? What an honor it is for you to be here with me.
I've had to make this transition multiple times. So
yes, you are.
It was crazy. No, thank you for that. It was a whirlwind the whole time I was there. How
shocked were you? How shocked were you when you got it, and then how much did your stomach go into your throat when Tirico was like, "You better get ready. I don't know if I feel right."
So this is what happened. So I was supposed to anchor from noon to 2:30.
Right.
That was my normal shift with the guys, and I was to get up and go report in the infield and do all that stuff. In the transition, Mike comes up and he goes to me. He's like, "Hey, I'm not feeling great." He's like, "You're going to have to take over." And I go, "Okay." Mike Tirico, in the history of Mike Tirico, has never tapped out.
Ever.
I was like, so that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So he was a little, sniffles. It sounded like his allergies may be bothering him.
His eyes were a little red and swollen.
Eyes were a little red. Yeah. He just didn't look quite right.
Right.
And he told me, he was like, I don't feel quite right. But I still didn't think that he was going to tap out. He would never do that.
Right.
But he just started feeling so bad that there was no choice. They had to go to Ahmed. They had no choice is how that happened. And so I got a call like 45 minutes later in my ear, and they're like, you got to come back and host the Kentucky Derby.
Because you were already down, by the track, getting ready to do some of your, on-the-track type of interviews.
I was about as far away as you can be
I'm
from
in the
set.
dirt. It's dirty, and it's rainy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I had 7 of those reports lined up basically saying the same thing. And so they called me. They go, hey, you got to come back here. And, Mike was not doing well, and I got there, and he had, he just clearly was not doing well.
Yeah, right.
And so I jumped in the seat, and they told me, it's like, Ahmed, you're going to be here until 5 o'clock, and then we'll see if Mike's better. And I thought at that point, I was like, Mike probably will be better. Give him a rest and give him a break. But it turned out to be serious, and medical professionals were there talking to him. And so at the same time that I was worried and nervous about all this, you're worried and nervous about Mike because you hope he's going to be okay.
Right.
But he was in good hands, and so then you got rolling. And part of me thinks, like, I was less nervous doing it that way than if I had been thinking about it for a month. It's like, oh, my God, I'm going to host the Kentucky Derby.
And look at that. Somebody just thought about putting the lights on for the show as we got already in the show. I like
get
that.
this guy in the spotlight.
I look like I'm a sunburn there. But you did a phenomenal job. Such a phenomenal job that, as I told you before we started the show, I was like, I probably turned it on, I'm going to say somewhere around 4-ish, right?
Yeah.
Where I started to tune in and go like, all right, I'm going to sit down and start to enjoy the whole show here.
Sure.
And you were on, and I was just going, oh, they must be doing something different this year. I didn't know. I mean, I just work in football at NBC.
It's my guy Ahmed.
So they showed you at the desk, and then we cut to an interview where Tirico was doing an interview, and I thought, oh, so Tirico's like doing the interview and some of the behind-the-scenes stuff today, and Ahmed Fareed's hosting the show. This is awesome. This is great. And then a few minutes later, I started getting texts from family members like, where's Tirico? Ahmed's doing a great job, but what happened to Tirico? And I was like, well, I don't know. Ahmed's doing great. And then I looked it up, and I was like, oh, crap, something is wrong with Tirico.
Yeah.
I was unaware of everything that went down, but you did a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
Like, you're made for it.
Thank you.
You are. You are made for that job and doing that. It was a great listen, and it was a great watch. Even though it was a little rainy, it was a fun race.
It was a fun race, and it was one of those times where I've done, and Mike tweeted that out, and he's been awesome. He was the first person to text me after the show. He was like, hey, a tremendous job.
Right.
Put you in a tough spot. You did amazing with it. He goes, I'm feeling fine. So
how prepared did you feel? Like, what was the first thing you had to do, right, as you were like, all right, now I'm hosting this show. You've been studying, I know, but you didn't think you were going to have to talk about the main race in depth, right? So you're not, like, in tune with, like, every little detail.
Yes.
So how did it go? Like, crash course all of a sudden of, like, let me read a little tidbit about all these guys so I can say something.
So I am an over-preparer. That's kind of like what I do. It's to my detriment, probably. I do too much sometimes.
Yeah.
I had not looked at the flow of the show. Of course, I knew the horses. I had been talking about them on the undercard shows, and so I was familiar with the field. But you know what it's like. The mechanics of a show is completely different than just talk. Hey, just go up there and talk about the race. You know, it's like no, we have elements that we have to get to.
Right.
Brandon Glass, one of our researchers, John Furlong, a researcher that's been with me from the get-go, they were there, and so every commercial break, we'd go, okay, here's the next script. Here's what you're going to say here. And I'm reading over because, like, names are there. There are other terms. I'm like, okay, let me get eyes on them. So normally during a commercial break, you just kind of relax. That was the only time I could prepare kind of for the next segment. And so they laid it out great. It was, the scripts were all there. And this is where you're teeing up Jerry on this horse. This is where you're teeing up Randy, the other analyst, on this horse. And so we were able to figure it out. But when 6:30 came, it was like there were fewer scripts because it's like, all right, this is race time. This is where you just let it fly.
Just talk about the horses,
which is what we did. And it was cool that it was a great race too, and it was a good finish. And I thought Larry Comas had an awesome call, and so that's like what I tried to tell myself is like just be in the moment, enjoy it. This is a really cool event. One of the coolest events that we have at NBC.
Yeah,
and so
it's special.
I just did it, and I was like, let's make Chris proud.
All right.
Like, let's do that. We're talking about it on Monday.
You made me proud.
Thank you.
You did. And it was a good race. Sovereignty winning and journalism coming in second. It sets up for a good Belmont in a few weeks here.
Couldn't use the line about journalism.
No, you couldn't use it. Sorry. Well, maybe you'll be able to use it in the next one.
That's true.
Somehow, some way.
Not
at Mike Tirico's expense.
I know.
Now you're going to be like, I was so good at that. You're going to drop something in Mike's tea during the before. Like, hey, Mike's sick again. I got to take over.
I go, Mike, what exactly are you allergic to? Okay.
Let me sprinkle some of that on the night before.
Yeah, but Mike was on the Today Show again today. He's already back at work.
Oh,
it's like he's already back at work.
Mike, anybody that knows Mike Tirico and anybody, his life is scheduled literally from here to next year, like perfectly. He is a machine. He really is. He's a special person that way. We're glad he's doing better, and we said, not glad. You did an awesome job.
Thanks.
It was fun to watch.
Thanks, Chris. All right, so we got a lot to talk about outside of the 20-horse field at the Kentucky Derby, which was 19 this year. I know. All right. I'm off the clock now. So we're going to do an Ask Me Anything. So the homies have submitted some questions for this podcast, and we have an interview with John Lynch.
I know.
Coming up here.
I'm excited.
I am pumped for that.
I've never done an interview with John Lynch here on the podcast. I've never had him like solo or anything like that. He's been on the Super Bowl Pro Football Talk set a few times, but hopefully we're not sitting here going to grill and be like, tell us the signing bonus for Brock Purdy. Yeah. So if you're thinking we're going to get that, no, I want more about the process behind the scenes, what's going on, free agency, how do you transition to the draft, things that go on in the draft. Let's ask him about some of the behind the scenes approach to things instead of like things that we know he's not going to tell us, but we'll ask a question so we could get some bland, stupid answer that really means nothing. And so I don't want to do that. And of course, we'll talk about Brock Purdy's contract situation and all that. But we're more about the process of a GM and him bringing us into that room, that mind thought, whatever else. And he's an old teammate of mine. We played in Tampa together when I was drafted by that Super Bowl Buccaneers football team. Of course, John Lynch was one of the biggest presence on that football team where it was like, first it was like, whoa, there's Warren Sapp. And then it was like, whoa, there's Derek Brooks. And then it was like, whoa, that's John Lynch, right? And look at his head. It's like a sledgehammer. No wonder he can hit like that. So we'll have some fun with him here.
So your first year was his last year,
his first,
right?
Yeah, my first year was his last year.
Okay.
And he, it was a tough year for him too. It was his last year there because he started to have a few little injury issues, neck, shoulder, stinger issue that he was kind of figuring out on the fly during the season, but missing a little time here and there. And I think because of his age, the Bucs got a little scared and they cut the cord. And obviously they cut it a little early because he went on and had a nice end to his career in Denver.
So looking forward to that interview with John Lynch, the GM of the 49ers, coming up in a bit. Ask Me Anything. But first, we do want to touch on this because Daboll's bald head tweeted you. Not the actual bald head, but we think it's an account with that name. Can you touch on the subject of Abdul Carter and getting number 11? Maybe your thoughts on the subject and how things transpired. So the news has been out there that your dad has said, Abdul Carter's coming in. He was 11. Jaxson Dart was 11 too?
No, Jaxson Dart wasn't. Jaxson Dart was 2, but he said in the conversation of where this came up, he said if Jaxson Dart asked him, he would be open to that too.
Got it. So this was your dad saying, if Abdul Carter, if Jaxson Dart just wanted to randomly get his number, he goes, quote, I told some of my friends and people around me, I'd let him have it in a second. And so your dad, it's a number that's retired.
Yeah.
all the things that he's done for the Giants, brought him a Super Bowl. It's just he was willing to give up that number 11. Take us into the Simms family here, because I know a lot of Giants fans have strong feelings, I'm sure.
They really do, yeah.
On both sides, but I think most want that number to stay in the rafters.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Pete's in my ear as a Giant fan right now going, yes, don't give up that number, right? And I think that was one of the surprising blowbacks my dad got a little bit in the whole process. But let's get back to the start. He gets drafted that first draft weekend there. Yep. There was already like, okay, we had heard, hey, he might call Lawrence Taylor in number 56, but number 11's also on his radar. So kind of been anticipating, right? My agent, my dad's agent, other people kept like texting us, hey, has Abdul Carter, anybody called about the number, right? So kind of expected it to happen, but he asked for Lawrence Taylor's number. Lawrence said, no, do your own thing, right? Make your own mark and set it in a Lawrence Taylor colorful way, right? And I think Abdul Carter appreciated that. And then it kind of went quiet to where I think people were like, well, he got denied by Lawrence Taylor, so maybe he'll get the clue now and they won't ask Phil Simms, right?
Yeah.
But as the week went on last week, started to hear little things that, maybe he was interested in 11. And then Dad gets asked on a few podcasts and certain radio things, and I think the one we're referring to here is with Sal from, I think it was DraftKings, right? Either way, is his podcast. And he gets into that, and it's a fan duel, with Sal. And they get into it, and he asks him the question, and my dad answers. Now, my dad, just to full transparency here, is just a guy that he's not an egomaniac. He's not a narcissist. I don't mean to say other people are. He just doesn't necessarily care about that stuff, right? People approach my dad and always go, hey, I think you should put a Hall of Fame push together. I think there's a few writers that'll back you. My dad's like, nah, I'm not doing that. Like, if I get in the Hall of Fame, that's great. I want to be in it. But he's not going to politic and make phone calls and go, let's start a media land rush to get me in there and do all that. That's just not who he is, right? Football. I said to Florio earlier today, football life. My dad's life is literally football to this point. Even now. I mean, it's like go to the field with little kids and throw footballs. And then it's like go to the field and throw with some older kids and throw footballs. Yeah. And then, hey, Christopher, I'm going to go down to the Giants and watch the Giants work out or watch some film down there. But I mean, that's all he is. We make fun of him in my house. My mom is literally like, I don't know what he would do with himself if it weren't for football. He has no hobbies. That's not. But football life, they didn't call him very early on in the process. And I think he was offended. And then I think he started to see guys and started to go, what? This guy's life is football? Like, get out of here. Like, what? And so he won't do that. That's just to let you. I'm letting everybody know how my dad is a little bit. Okay, he's not into give me more attention, give me more publicity. That's not who he's not. So, leading up to the week, all right, it was out there a little bit. He had made a few comments. He had kind of asked me a few times of just like, hey, what do you think? And I was like, man, I don't know. I think it's kind of cool, right? I mean, he's like, yeah, I'm kind of the same way. He's like, you know me. I don't give a shit about this stuff. I don't care. So we get to Friday. And I have a day off last Friday, and he calls me like late in the morning, and he calls, I didn't answer. A few minutes after that, Florio calls me. I missed that call as well, but then he texts me right after, and he's like, hey, Drew Rosenhaus just called. I thought I had your dad's number. I don't. Can you ask your dad if it's okay if I pass? You give me your dad's number and I'll pass it along to Drew Rosenhaus. I said sure. I was like no problem. So of course my dad didn't care. I give Mike the number. Boom. Drew Rosenhaus gets it. I call my dad back about 30 minutes later and I go, hey Dad, Drew, I know I texted you. Drew Rosenhaus though, he's gonna call you. Oh, it's all right. I've already talked to him. He's already called. I already talked to him. Right, so he's already all right. What do you think about this? And I was like, well, I think it could kind of be kind of cool, Dad. I mean, he's a special player. My dad loves the Giants. We're Giant fans. My dad is all about the Giants organization. I mean, he loves the Mara family. I mean, like loves them. Right? Loves them. Like would take a bullet for them. That's how much my dad loves the Mara family. So he's into anything Giants better. Okay, great. And so he goes, what do you think? And I go, yeah, I think it'd be kind of cool. I mean,
to let him use the number.
Yeah, let him use your number. He's a special player. We both think he's awesome and gonna be awesome. Every time he gets a sack or does anything, people are gonna bring up your name and go, hey, oh yeah, number 11, wearing the old number of the great Giants quarterback Phil Simms, who gave it to him, right? So I was like, you're gonna get honored through this whole thing too, and you're gonna get brought up a lot. It's like, yeah, that's how I feel. That's how I feel. I'm with you. Oh wait, hold on. I got somebody call me. Hold on, I'll call you right back. He hangs up. Calls me back 3 minutes later. That was Joe Shane, right? The GM of the Giants. That was Joe Shane. He kind of was asking me and about the jersey thing too, and I'm going to talk to Abdul Carter later today, but they just wanted to tell me that, I could give the number, and I mean, nothing changes, and my name, everything stays up there, and whatever happens with his career, nothing really changes for me. And I was like, yeah, exactly. This is cool. Like, and he's like, okay, all right. So what do you think I should do? And I was like, all right, well, here's the first thing I think you need to do. You need to call Lawrence Taylor. All right? Because he just said no, and you don't want to show him up and make him look like, hey, you're a jerk for not giving him the number, but I'm going to give him the number. I'm the cool Giants guy, right? And he's like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. I need to do that. Hold on. Let me call, I'm going to call him. And I was like, yeah, because you got to call him and just be like, whatever. And then I said, in the press conference, you say something like, yeah, Lawrence Taylor shouldn't give his number. He's one of the greatest of all time. I'm not one of the greatest of all time. I'm a great Giant, and I would love for him to have it, but Lawrence is in a different stratosphere, right? That was what basically how he was gonna spin it off. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, this is gonna be awesome. And he's like, yeah, I think we're gonna have a press conference. I'm gonna hand him the jersey. I'm gonna do all of that. So I'm thinking, wow, okay, it's gonna happen. Big Phil, he's gonna give the jersey to Abdul Carter. This is kind of cool. Right? I go about my day. I actually text some of the NBC people like, hey, my dad's going to give Abdul Carter the jersey. Let's get something ready for social media, right? It's going to be a thing. It's definitely going to happen. And they were like, all right, good. How about this? All right, you ready to post it? And I was like, well, let me just text my dad to make sure it's 100% going to go down here, right? And I text him. I kind of get ghosted. I don't hear anything. Then a little while later, my sister calls. And my sister called, Christopher, what do you think? Should Dad give it up? And I'm like, well, yeah, I've talked to Dad. I think it's kind of cool.
Your sister will love that impression of her.
I think it's kind of cool. Oh, what? I thought you were going to be on my side. All right, goodbye, Christopher. Goodbye. That's enough from you. We don't want to talk. She hangs up, right? She doesn't want to hear it. So at that point, I knew, I was like, uh-oh. Like, there's a little fight in the house going on, right? Then my dad texts me a little while after that, like, man, your sister's going crazy, and your mom's not taking it too well either. They don't want me to give this number up. And then he started like, I actually, Christopher, I can't get over all the blowback I'm getting. How many people I got texting me telling me I shouldn't give my number. And he's sending me some screenshots of some pretty famous people and things that are texting him, going like, hey, your number's special, don't you earned it, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So I know he's not affected by that, but I think he was shocked that there was that much blowback about don't give your number back.
Right.
So now I'm like, hey, I text him again, like, what's going on? Are you going to do it? And he's like, I don't know what to do. He's like, I want to. He's like, but you got to change your sister and your mom's mind. I text my sister, and I just stepped into just a buzzsaw, right? Where I was like, oh, no, okay. Like, she is way emotionally invested in this. Me and Mom are not doing this, and how dare you say this, and blah, blah, blah. So I just backed off. I let it happen. And then I'm going to say 2 hours later, I found out like the rest of the world. Gary Myers tweeted it out that my dad said he had been outvoted by the family and that he couldn't give the number, right? And that's all I heard that night. The next morning, my dad texted me, hey, I talked to Abdul last night. He was great. He was so cool. It was a great conversation, blah, 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 right? But, yeah, I gave in, right? And I was like, and I text back, like, you gave in to what, Mom or Abdul Carter, right? I was like so confused. I was like, wait, so he might still? And then he was like, no, I gave in to your mom and sister. They've gone away on vacation, so he's not going to be able to talk about it this week. But what I did find out is that my sister and mom have way more votes or more sway in my dad's mind than I do. That's for sure.
Their vote counts for 10.
Right. So sorry for the long talk there, talking a lot, but it was a fun, entertaining story.
That was awesome.
all of it.
I didn't know the story.
Yeah.
I didn't see you tell it with Mike, and so that took more twists and turns than I was anticipating. So do you think it's over?
I think it is.
You think it's over?
I do. Yeah, I don't think. I think. One, he had the conversation with Abdul Carter. Two, I think I don't know where my brother stands on it.
Yeah.
I get the sense my brother was also like, don't give the number away. I think me and my dad were the only ones that were maybe in that. But yeah there's no way he's going to cross. My sister is ruthless, right? And ruthless in a good way, out of love and just being so stubborn.
There are so many Giants fans that are going to love your sister.
Oh, my God. My sister, I told her, Deirdre is one of these that if you go to a Giants game and she sees somebody with an Eli Manning jersey on, she'll go, wait, why are you wearing that jersey? Get a Phil Simms jersey, right? She's that girl, right? Like, you need to get a number 11. That's stupid, 10, right? Or something like that. And, of course, she loves Eli Manning and the Giants, too, but she loves her dad. And, yes, she is the one that I think if anybody is happy my dad's 11 is staying in retirement, it is because of my sister, Deirdre. And then, of course, happy wife, happy life, my mom, Diana, Dirty Diana, as I call her, behind the scenes backing up my sister. Yeah, my dad didn't want to mess with that on a daily basis for the rest of his life, so he's keeping that jersey retired.
This is close to like a good chunk of a book.
I know.
That's a good chunk of a book right there, all the ins and outs of what happened. Gary Myers tweeted this out, I think. He goes, breaking news, good news for Giants fans who believe in tradition. Unlike the man to my left right now, Phil Simms, number 11, will not be coming out of retirement for first-round pick Abdul Carter, who wore 11 at Penn State. Simms said on a podcast he would be okay with it, but he told me tonight he was outvoted by his family, so that's where he came up with it. After hearing that Simms was agreeable, Carter had said it would be an honor to wear 11. LT already turned down Carter's request to wear 56. Carter needs to create his own legacy with his own number. Now, you mentioned Lawrence Taylor, what he said. He said, quote, I know he would love to wear that number, 56, but hey, I think it's retired. Get another number. I don't care if it's 00. Then make it famous, which, hey, I think a lot of people have that sentiment. And I do think I totally see where you're coming from. I think it would have been awesome for your dad to have that connection and the legacy. And if Abdul Carter goes on to have this great career, then they're linked forever, the two great 11s, and then maybe it becomes like the number 1 at Michigan. It's this great number that gets passed down.
Thinking, right, or like Brazil wearing number 10, right, in soccer, or like stuff like that. Yeah, I had the same similar thought there.
And me as a futurist, I'm thinking 300 years into the future, we are going to run out of numbers, so inevitably we will have to bring some numbers back out of retirement when that day comes, but that day is not today. But I also get the other side of it too.
I know.
It's just like
I do too.
And I do think for Carter, not that I'm not going to say it's strange, but I do think coming right away and going for 56 and going for 11, that takes a lot of I will say it takes a lot of guts.
It does. It takes
and confidence
guts.
In yourself.
And I think that's what he is. He's an alpha and alpha of alphas that way.
Yeah.
I think it was out of respect, though. That's where it's not like it's like, hey, it's just me and I want that number. I think he wanted
to honor both of them.
I think he did. And I think a lot of us have compared him to Lawrence Taylor and Michael Parsons, right, with that kind of player. So I think he sees that. He's from this area. He knows how big time in the Northeast Lawrence Taylor's name is. I'm sure he's heard it since he grew up. And then even, again, sports, we know, tradition, whatever it is, like, what do I want to say? Like people who are scared to change things. He wore number 11. And he was, like, awesome in it. And it made him the number 3 pick in the draft. Yeah. So he's like, that's a lucky number. Superstitious is the word I was looking for. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. So I understand that, too. And, again, he approached it the right way with respect. And the way that, hey, the agent called. He made a little comment on social media after my dad had said that to Sal on the podcast. Like, oh, it would be an honor to wear the number, right? That's what kind of opened the door and started the conversation. So my dad opened his mouth to kind of open the door a little bit to say, I'd be up for it. And I think that's what kind of made everything after that transpire. Yeah. And, hey, we're rooting for him. That's for sure.
Your dad said that
I'm excited to see what number he's going to wear.
Pull the old okey doke on him. He's like, yeah, he could do it. He could do it. Yoink. So he wore number 22 in high school. Pete is noting here.
That's not retired by the Giants.
Well, does he next go after the number 92, Pete Wonders and Michael Strahan's number?
He's going to keep going.
Going down the list.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think he's officially will be out of the retired retired number conversation here. But I am interested to see what he'll do. And, of course, he's a big name up here in the area right now just because Giants fans are excited that maybe we got our next Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah.
And, just the way he looks, the way he plays, all of it, we're all excited and happy to jump on the Giant tradition with Abdul Carter.
Cornerback Drew Phillips currently wears number 22 for the Giants, and so he's all these. That's what I'm saying. All these numbers are taken. What's going on out here? All right, time for Ask Me Anything. Let's go to Giants since we're talking about them. We got a couple questions from the homies. 2s, 6. Did you have anything more to add there?
No, I think we hit it all. Hit it all.
It was a great transition by me, but I still wanted to make sure that we hit that. That was an awesome story.
One more thing by Ahmed Fareed.
2-6 says to you, why shouldn't Jaxson Dart play this season? I ask because I think it would be a disservice to him to go into year 2 with 0 playing time. If I'm a Giants regime person, my goal would be to play him 2 to 4 games this season just to get his feet wet.
I don't think that's, unrealistic. I know what you're saying at 2-6. I get you there. And I think those options are on the table and more. They're not married to any of these guys. Russell Wilson and his $10 million contract, so what? They don't care. That's not the kind of contract that just cements you as the starter, and they're like, well, we paid him so much money, we can't make him the backup, right? I think anything's open here. If Jaxson Dart can go through OTAs here and training camp and show that, hey, he's pretty mature and he's ready for NFL football, I don't put it out of the realm of possibilities that he could start the year. Or at the very least, if the Giants get off to a 1-3 start or something like that, did they throw Jaxson Dart in there? Yeah, again, I think it's very realistic to think he's the backup like we talked about. Mm-hmm. He could be the backup. Jameis Winston just kind of hovering for the emergency just in case things go crazy as the third stringer, right? So I hear you, and I would want him to play too. I would want him to play and get that experience. You drafted him to play. You drafted him to be the future of your organization, and yeah, I wouldn't want to see him sit out a year. And one of the reasons he was picked where he was picked is because we felt like he was NFL ready and mature as far as reading coverages and going through progressions and doing all that stuff. That's the stuff you like about him.
Yeah, and it kind of goes hand in hand with this. This is NFL fan Matt that says, what's your honest assessment of our team, the Giants and the Daboll Shane era? If this year is a disaster and Dart never plays, don't you have to give them another year? Love you, Chris. And so I think hand in hand with the Dart thing is the Shane and Daboll. It seems like they're on the high. This is it for them. And so do you give Dart those reps if you believe still that Russ or Jameis give you a chance to etch out a couple more wins at the end of the year, get you into the playoffs, and then maybe save your job for another year?
I know. That's going to be the tough thing here. There's a lot of different logics here. You could say, wait, they drafted Jaxson Dart. This should save Daboll and Shane for another year because they drafted him and they should be able to see through the development. Or it could also be like, no, they drafted him, and they got to deal with this and still try to win football games.
Still playoffs or bust,
and you can still be fired. Yeah. And now it goes to the next regime, which isn't always perfect. And I think that's what people are talking about here in this situation too, because we've seen scenarios in the past. Draft a quarterback. Oh, the coaching staff gets fired. Another coaching staff takes over, and then they're like, well, this isn't really my guy. And they're really just buying time so they can get to their guy and get rid of that guy. Yeah. Like a la Justin Fields or Mitch Trubisky, I should say, with the damn Chiefs offensive coordinator. What the hell's his name, Pete?
Matt Nagy.
Matt Nagy. Thank you very much. Way to come up there. See, you weren't studying just horses this weekend. But yeah, that's a situation like that. Wait, oh man, I just was in Kansas City. They drafted Mahomes. I went to Chicago, and now I'm stuck with Mitch Trubisky. I didn't want to do that. Oh, wait, now it's the end of my tenure. Maybe I'll draft a quarterback to save myself a job for a year. We'll draft Justin Fields. Oh, I'm fired. Now the next regime does the same exact damn thing. Yeah. I mean, in Chicago, they're going for they've gone 3 in a row in the same thing. Draft a quarterback, regime ends, next regime has to take it over. Right, so we've gone Trubisky to Fields to, of course, Caleb Williams now, which I think this coach is like, yeah, I'm glad I got Caleb Williams. But I don't know where this goes. Yeah. And again, that's what they're going to have to balance of the future and the development of Jaxson Dart with also winning football games. And that's why the drafting of the quarterback, to me, confused the situation altogether.
I skipped over the first part of the question. Yeah. Your assessment of Daboll and Shane.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think it's like some special positive grade, right? I mean, my assessment is that there's been some things I've liked and there's been some things I don't like. Like if you're asking me to like grade it, I'd be like, yeah, it's kind of B- ish, right? That's what I would say. There's fault to be blamed a little bit everywhere. There's been some things I like, right? And there are things about Dayball and how he coaches, and we saw some of the things in that first year when they went to the wild card game and beat Minnesota, and there's some offensive game planning and they play tough and all that. But also I look at it and go, hey, he's got to be a little bit better with quarterbacks, right? He can't be yelling at everybody all the time and losing his temper on the sidelines. I think he should call the plays. That's why we were hired, because you were an offensive like genius, and that's why you were taken from Alabama to Buffalo to here, right? So I want to see you do that. And Shane is like the same kind of thing. I can go, hey, there's some things I do like. I mean, I like Malik Neighbors. Last year's class was pretty good. There's some guys that they've done some good things on the defensive side of the ball, but there's also some, why did we give Daniel Jones the big contract then? Or what did we do with Saquon Barkley, right? Man, so I think there's things like where I go, it hasn't been the worst, but I'm certainly not sitting here going to say it's the best. And hopefully this year they can get more positive grades here to where we can think more positively of them altogether.
Yeah, still an interesting situation. Crazy quarterback room. Imagine if they had Shedeur Sanders in that quarterback room too. Tomato Paste asked about the Browns, who do.
Yeah.
I think Dillon Gabriel beats out Shedeur Sanders. To me, he's the most talented quarterback behind Ward from the draft. He is short. That's all I have heard you really say about him.
Yeah.
Could we hear a more detailed explanation of why you had him so low?
Right. I listen, there was things I liked about him. There is. I've talked about his arm is pretty damn strong. He's got a quick release. He's a good athlete. He definitely is. I can find him to be a little bit of a high-effort thrower sometimes when the ball has to go down the field, which means he needs space and area around him, and that's just not always there. And then I think there was also a part of me that goes, yeah, he is small, and there was plays I felt like I looked at every game where I'd go, man, that guy's kind of open down the middle, or this guy's there, but I don't think he can see him, or he's not comfortable in the pocket, so he's going to kind of move or get the ball out of his hands real quick, where I want to go, nah, like the big guy's going to stand there and push that ball down the field there, right? So those are things I just worried about with him. But I see the physical tools, but again, it's a guy it is 5'10". It's not like, oh my gosh, he's so fast, and oh my gosh, his arm's so strong, but yes, could he mess with Shedeur Sanders here and beat him out? Absolutely. I mean, he's been around some good offenses. He knows how to play quarterback in the pocket. He's very good that way. And I do think they'll push each other there, and you'll have a real duel between the two rookies there in Cleveland.
He feels kind of like, and I don't know why, he feels kind of like a Gardner Minshew-ish, right? Where there could be stretches where you're like, man, maybe he is the guy and can play to that level, but then there are physical limitations that ultimately cap his ceiling.
That's what we're going to see. We're going to see. And we're going to see, too, as if you played pretty small in college, you're going to be even smaller in the NFL. And we know how the pocket gets even more collapsed and claustrophobic in the NFL. That's something he's going to he's going to go, whoa, I played big-time football in the Big Ten. I know that. But, wow, things are a little different here sitting in this pocket in the NFL. And that's going to make him feel smaller and a little more nervous and get the ball out of his hands, too. So we'll see how he adjusts to that. Yeah. But there are things I like. And, hey, listen, the biggest fan of Dillon Gabriel is the guy we just talked about, my dad. So my dad would be one that would go, no, I like Dillon Gabriel. That's like his sleeper guy right there.
Oh, interesting.
And I think within this offense – right, this is a offense in Kevin Stefanski, kind of West Coast. They like to run the play action, bootlegs a lot, and do some of that. Dillon Gabriel is going to be very good at that stuff.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, bootlegs on the run, doing stuff like that. Hey, fake the run here, come out the back door, and you can run or make a throw down the field. He's pretty damn good in that department. He will be better than Shedeur in that department.
Well, hey, you just gave Drew Rosenhaus your dad's number. Would you give it to Tomato Paste so they could talk about their love of Dillon Gabriel
I don't know
together?
Tomato Paste enough. Sorry, I don't know him well enough. I know Drew Rosenhaus. I don't know this guy.
Given the ability differences maybe in what you think of Dillon, what you think of Shedeur Sanders, you thought he was the number 2 quarterback in the class. Given where they drafted him, though, 3rd round for Gabriel, 5th round for Sanders, how do you think this all does play out? Who do you think beats who, and does it matter?
No,
in the beginning of the year, will it matter if one's 3 or 2 or 3?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. The thing that's I think fascinating about the whole thing is just like, you got 4 guys, right, and you got 2 rookies where you go, we'd like to get them a lot of work and see what they're going, but you got to also worry about, hey, Kenny Pickett could be our starter. I don't know, maybe Joe Flacco is. So like in a 7-on-7 period in OTAs, you could have 12, 14 plays. You got to split that up between 4 people, right? You're not doing justice to your young quarterbacks by like, hey, here's the last 2 plays of the period, and here's the last 2 plays of this period, right? So I'm interested in how they divvy that up a little bit. But yeah, they're almost opposites. And Shedeur Sanders and bootlegs and stuff like that, that's not necessarily his game. But standing in the pocket, being big and strong and tough with people collapsing around him, that's where he does thrive, in my opinion. That's where he does have Dillon Gabriel beat in that department there. So I'll be interested, and I don't know how they favor him. I don't think there is a favorite here as you go forward. I really don't. I think it's one that's truly going to be like, let's just see who plays the best, who practices the best, handles the offense the best, and they're going to go from there.
Well, we know Cam Ward is the starter for the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
Josh Mills 90 says to you, what are the best possible expectations for the Titans this year? They were 3-14 last year. Last place in the AFC South.
Yep.
Are they better than that this year?
I think so. I think, too, like they're better than their record was last year, too.
They were only 1 game worse than the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Well,
we were talking about being a potential playoff team.
And you know, they lost some heartbreakers, especially like in the middle part of the year, right? I like what they've done in the offseason. I mean, we've discussed that. I have. I thought they had one of the better drafts. I think they've fix their offensive line to where it's going to be better and be able to do some of the things that Bill Callahan, the offensive line coach, is going to want done there. I think they're a team that is a pain in the ass is what I would look at. This is still a defense that's got a tremendous secondary and a pretty good front 7, right? But I don't know if I'm ready to sit here. I'd like to see Cam Ward play a little bit to go, oh, okay. But I look at them to be a team that's like, yeah, pain in the ass, upset some people's playoff, chances as we go through the year, right? Pull up a few upsets here and there, but ultimately are on the outside looking in on like a 7-10 type of year, right? But, I mean, again, can I see them catching fire and getting a little mojo and playing through their defense and winning some ugly games like that? I wouldn't be shocked. But, yeah, I'm not expecting playoffs quite yet here with this team, but certainly an improvement. That's what I expect.
But you're not putting that percentage at 0% chance of making the playoffs.
No, I'm not, because also I look at it and go, that division there, I mean, we know Houston's the best. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But it's not like, oh, wow, they're outclassed by everybody. And I do think when you take into account the number 2 defense in the NFL last year and a quarterback that was extremely careless with the football, where you can go back in games and go, man, if Will Levis didn't do this right here or do that right here, they're going to pull this game off. They're going to win this football game. Or it's going to go down to the very end and be a nail-biter, and they just didn't get the consistent play from the quarterback position. And to go along with that, just not enough offensive weapons there yet. And that's one thing to question with their team as a whole, too.
Yeah. Pete notes that based off opposing team win totals for the season, Tennessee has the 8th easiest schedule in the NFL this year.
Okay.
So that will help for them.
Yeah.
Of course, having a bad record the year before.
Big year.
Always helps. That is a big year for them. But you're right. Houston was 10-7 last year and won the division. So you get to play those teams a bunch of times. All right, late round quarterbacks. Jason Vernoff wants to know, what do you think about some of your highly rated quarterbacks falling to the late rounds, like Kyle McCord, to the Eagles, Quinn Ewers, to the Dolphins? What do you think of the report about Ewers being too much of a big name to be a clipboard holder? So this is what Ewers' agent said, that he heard from some teams why he fell to round 7. They thought he was a 3rd or 4th round pick, but too big of a name to be a clipboard holder, which I think is chicken crap.
Right.
He didn't say crap.
No, he did
said
not.
the actual word.
He said the actual
which
word.
Is how mad he was.
And, listen, is that chicken crap? Yeah, to a degree. Is that maybe just GMs trying to somewhat softly let a guy down and the agent to be like, oh, yeah, we had him here, but we thought like this and that, and that's why he fell, whatever. I mean, they're not going to get the full truth and stuff like that. Now, do I think there is some truth in that overall thought there? Yes. I mean, first off, let's talk about Kyle McCord. I did not think either one of I thought these guys would go a little earlier, for sure. I really did. And from what I know, from what I've heard a little bit through the grapevines, is the Eagles, I think, were maybe going to take Shedeur Sanders. And Cleveland jumped them, right? So Eagles were looking for some sort of quarterback as a backup for the future to improve their room. Yeah, I was shocked with McCord, but again, I think that's where you only play 1 year of college football or 1 year of like what people look at as good college football, because the Ohio State year gets used as a negative against him. And then the lack of movement and running, I think that really hurt him. Ewers, I mean, I had a lot of conversations with people about Ewers. I always had coaches and GMs texting me like, do you think he's got more in his arm, right? That was the thing I kept getting. And you heard me say that a little bit through the process.
Let it go. You want to just let it go.
There's too much anticipation or dropping it in a window or let me just drop it right there. And it's like there's no dropping stuff in the NFL. A few throws a game are like that. The rest of them are you better drive the ball into that window or that hole or it's going to get intercepted.
So other coaches maybe wondered if he could do that. You thought he could. He just wasn't.
Exactly. I do think he can do it. I think he was a little coached to play that way a little bit, and I think he got a little bit fascinated, carried away with it to where it's like, wait, we don't always have to use the 9-iron. Every now and then the driver's needed, right? The pitching wedge is not always what we want to go with. I know it's a nice little club and you're good at it, but damn, every now and then we got to rear back and hit 350 down the middle of the fairway. And I think that bothered people. He has a little bit of a lackadaisical way about him, like nothing really bothers him, all right, but nothing really seems to get his blood boiling either. I think there was that aspect of it. And, yeah, we're in an era right now where, okay, Quinn Ewers halfway through the college football year, because of unqualified people making qualified statements, people were going, oh, Texas is good. That's a nice emblem on their helmet. He must be a first-round pick, right? Just what we always talk about. And I would talk to people in the NFL, right? In front offices going, I think Quinn Ewers is going to go in the first round. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, no way. But again, that's where it gets. So that props him up. But I do think the fact of a very real thing in the NFL right now, and we should ask John Lynch when we talk about this, about players. Yes, I'm a big name. I've been the star at a big school. I've made big money. Is this guy going to come in here and when he make him the second or third string guy, is he going to work to get better every day? Or is he going to be like, I made $8 million already. I'm kind of cool. This isn't like, so what? I'm third string. I'm not even going to really fight to be second string. I'm good. This is a great job, third string, right? And not everybody's going to love that. And that's, again, where we got into a lot of the conversations of the pre-draft process of, like, tiebreakers were love of the game, how hard he works at the sport, not necessarily the talent all the time right now. And people are worried about this NIL money in these kids' pockets and how they're going to react off of that once they get in the NFL.
You know what I think? I think this draft and this year could significantly change the decision-making process for some of these quarterbacks. I think unless you are a slam dunk first or maybe top of the second round guy, I think you go back to college. You use up all the eligibility that you can get, and maybe hopefully become a Bo Nix where you are
and you become a better player. Guy. I would have said this from the get-go too. With him, I said it like, go back to school. He was. There was all the rumors, and they're real, that he was getting offered $4.5–5 million to go somewhere else. Right now,
I mean, he's going to make that over the lifetime of his contract, of his rookie contract.
Right. He was going to do that in 1 year. Let alone, like you said, you go back to school, you get that big payday, and maybe you improve on throwing the fastball and being more aggressive. And all of a sudden, now teams go, wait, you've improved. Your stock is up. We're going to draft you in the second or third round.
Different coaches unlock something different, or
exactly
shows.
Right. Exactly. So I'm with you in that fact. It's also odd too that the transfer portal happens during the college football playoff. That also does not help this process either. Right. It's hard for a guy to just go like, oh, I just lost to Ohio State. I'm leaving school now. See you later. I'm going to another school.
Well,
right.
That's true. Yeah,
it is a very weird thing that the NCAA also needs to fix, so that the transfer portal window should not open during the college football playoff.
Yeah, some of these players have to determine if they're going to play in a
college
football playoff game.
Right.
Yeah.
I am the quarterback. We're playing Ohio State, but I can read the temperature. They're going with Arch Manning next year. See ya. Guys, I'm not going to play in the college football semifinal. I've already made my mind. I'm going to the University of Miami for $4.5 million a year.
Or I'm going to Arizona State, and I'm starting against you next week, which I actually believe. I think that is a possibility.
Happen.
I think that because some semesters when they start and end, if you begin classes before,
I'd have to look at the details there, but you might be right.
Because Will Rogers was a Washington quarterback last year who transferred in, and they were in the playoffs last year where he came from wasn't.
Yeah.
They told me that he could have technically played for them in the college football playoffs. when Penix was there. Obviously, they wouldn't have because he was there. So it's like there are some situations. You're right. They got to figure out. They got to figure all that out.
Definitely.
All right, let's move on to the Packers here. Exweldo says to you, Packers drafted Matthew Golden, and since I'm a fan of yours, I'm not exactly thrilled about it. Now that he's there, what's a realistic expectation for him? Is it better that he's on a team where he doesn't have to be a wide receiver 1 or even 2 because of Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks?
Yeah, I think he just there's no like, oh, we need him to be a star right now. We know they have guys at receiver. What they're looking for is a marquee guy, a receiver, and that's what they're hoping they're going to get from him. And that's where I'm not sure about it, and I think that's the kind of the question we're getting here. He heard my draft assessment, and it's not just me. Again, I think there's a lot of I don't have to think. There's a lot of people in football that were like, Matthew Golden in the first round, right? I mean, we talked about this a lot through the process. Him and Emeka Egbuka, you could talk to one team and they'd go, I kind of like Matthew Golden in the first round. And they go, no, but not Emeka Egbuka. And they could talk to another team and they'd be like, I kind of like Emeka Egbuka in the first round, but not Matthew Golden, right? So it was all over the place with him. But I do think he's a safe pick. That's the first thing. We heard about it. Sarkisian told me. Everybody's kind of told me. He's a professional. He works. He's obsessed with the sport. There is physical ability that you can still tap into, like we talked about in the whole process, as far as getting off the ball with more aggression and intensity and just pedal to the metal all the time, coming out of breaks, ball in your hand, go, right? There's a little bit of a tentativeness in his football game, but he's still very high floor, with the possibility of getting a very high ceiling and very much NFL ready right now. So he can contribute to your team. He's definitely going to be one of your 3 on the field. And he has a chance, if things go right, to where you go, if he unlocks the way he runs, and maybe he had a foot injury last year and was doing that, maybe he can be a star and be a number 1. But at the very worst, he's one of our 3 for a while. And I think that's what they went with. They knew they needed to take a swing and get a hit at the receiver position because of Romeo Dobbs' situation, Christian Watson's situation, and what's going on there. So we'll see where it goes.
If I was to make you bet $17,000, so this is a lot,
wow,
on who will lead the Packers in receiving yards next year.
I'm going to still go with Jaden Reed right now. I'm going to go with Jaden Reed.
Okay.
You know, their tight ends are impressive. Christian Watson, of course, will not be himself early on in the football year. Jaden Reed is their most complete receiver as we know it. And he is a guy that can do it all. He's got more deep speed than I gave him credit for coming out of Michigan State. And, of course, he can do all that jitterbug, intermediate route running stuff, too. So he's a special football player. I'll still go with him.
Yeah, good catcher of the football, too. He just makes it look clean every time.
He does. Rips it out of the air.
I would never make you do that. I would never make you bet 17,000. I don't think anyone should do that.
It's a random number. Yeah, 17,000. You just didn't want to make it 20?
I want to make you really think about it, though. This is a lot on the line here.
$17,000.
A lot on the line here. A money back bonus, though, I would give you. Yeah, I didn't lose any of that at the track. I always run out of time to bet. I'm like, I'm going to bet. And then it's just like, that's right.
Wait,
I'm doing a 12-hour show. I have no time to do that. All right, let's go over to the Vikings now. We got Michigan Skull Dyer. What? A Michigan person who is a Vikings fan?
Wow.
Oh, Skolger. Oh, okay. Skolger. Michigan Skolger. So still a Vikings fan here. Must be Upper Peninsula, I would bet. Although a lot of those people are Packers fans. What type of season does a non-quarterback have to win MVP? And how many times straight will J.J. McCarthy win it? All right, so he's a very positive Vikings fan. MVP, non-quarterback. What kind of season?
I mean, you tell me. How good does it have to be? We just saw a guy running for 2,000 yards, and nobody even thought about giving him the MVP. I mean, nobody. It's gotten to the point where it's annoying to me, and you know I don't like this, and I don't like this with the Heisman either. It's just like the best quarterback on the best team award. Now, we've had some quarterbacks here the last few years who have deserved it, for sure. Like Lamar 2 years ago. Lamar could have got it again this year, and Josh Allen deserved it. But as you see, with any other position, you almost have to break NFL long-standing records. That's the way it's got. I mean, Randy Moss broke the touchdown receiving record in one season, and what he got? He got overshadowed by Brady playing quarterback, so he didn't get it there. I mean, you got to break the sack record or flirt with that, like a Lawrence Taylor did back in 1986. You got to, rush for close to 2,000 or 2,000 and probably lead the league in touchdowns, right? Something like that, like an Emmitt Smith did back in the day.
Yep.
But, yeah, it takes something special that way right now. It's a quarterback league. They get all the publicity. They get all the credit when they win. And where we are right now is we got four who are so freaking awesome that – and their teams are pretty good, whereas, like, it's hard to get Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, and Burrow out of the conversation, right? So that's where we're in this little, conundrum right now.
They're not all going to have a bad year.
No, they're not.
So you got to go back to, what, 2006, the last time a non-quarterback won it. I'm looking through. I think that's right. Oh, no. 2012. Adrian Peterson. And then 2006 was LaDainian Tomlinson.
That was LaDainian.
The year before, Sean Alexander.
Okay.
But since 2012, no, all quarterbacks.
All quarterbacks, yep. And, I mean, even those years, LaDainian, that was a special year. I mean, it was. Sean Alexander leading the NFL in rushing, led the NFL in touchdowns. All of that had been dominating really the prior years to that. And, of course, Seattle was arguably the best team in football that year, so that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But that seems few and far between nowadays, and it has definitely become more quarterback-centric.
Pete notes here that he does think that 2024 Saquon Barkley, the year that he just had, would have beaten 2023 MVP Lamar Jackson.
Oof, I don't know.
I think so, right? It was pretty underwhelming.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. 2 years ago, yeah.
So the Lamar one
right.
when we were kind of searching, no one was really.
Yeah, it wasn't a special year.
I think that would have been the year Saquon had.
You're right about that, Pete. 100%. I was wrong there. It was not. They got unlucky. I mean, I talked about this with Jamar Chase's dad, right? Because he was like, I can't believe we're not going to win Offensive Player in the Year. I'm like, well.
Yeah.
I mean, there's this guy called Saquon, and it's like you just got unlucky. And, yeah, this is a year where you can go, Lamar could have won MVP, Joe Burrow could have won MVP, Saquon could have won MVP. Yeah. And really, Jamar Chase in a lot of years we could have thrown into that conversation where he got some votes. He got no votes in this one. So, but, yeah, you're right about that, right, Pete? It is. If it was 2 years ago, Saquon wins it.
All right, we got a question about my Detroit Lions. Yeah. Yate Dog, 1983. Hello, Yate Dog. What do you think the reasoning was for the Lions to select Isaac TeSlaa so early? Most had him outside the top 12 wide receiver rankings. There were so many other options on the edge for a team in need of that. What made TeSlaa so appealing? Also still waiting on an invite to the barn. Yate Dog wants to come to the barn.
Damn, that's interesting there.
We didn't know. Hey, Yate Dog, you never asked.
Does he know what he's in store for if he comes to the barn? Do you know what you have to partake in? You're not sure about that. Actually, you don't have to because Ahmed doesn't partake in it, so you're good either way.
So here's what the Lions traded to get TeSlaa.
Right.
They traded 2 third-round picks next year. They did receive 2 sixth-round picks to move up 32 spots in round 3 to take TeSlaa.
He's
out of Arkansas.
There's a number of receivers, when we talked about this year, where you'd go, it's a deep class, a ton of guys where you go, this guy's pretty good, but damn, it's hard to evaluate how good because he's on a shit offense or a quarterback that can't throw the ball consistently. And there was a number of receivers down the line where you were like, I like this guy. There's something to work with here. But there's another guy here that's similar, and he's getting a lot of catches, and I get to see it, and I just trust it a little more. I think what you're looking at here with this kid is Alec Pierce-ish type of guy, right? Incredible route runner, better physical ability than he's given it credit for because his skin is white, okay? And I'm saying that jokingly a little bit.
No, his athletic score
is insane.
Is ridiculous.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And so there's something there, too, where – I'm sure they did their deep dive into this guy and what he is behind the scenes. And, again, the hell with the production. See, we don't care about production now with this kind of things, but when it's the first round and all that, we're always into it. But so, yeah, they're going to go with a guy and go, hey, third round, we had a higher grade on him than maybe the media or the draft pundits realize. He's sitting here, and we don't really have a receiver like that. A guy that's big, and we can go, he can kind of catch all the contested throws and all that. But when we want to maybe put Amon-Ra St. Brown outside and Jamison Williams outside, this guy could play inside too and be like a Ricky Pearsall in the slot, unbelievable route runner, tough over the middle, do stuff like that. I think that's where they looked at it. Was I shocked when I saw trade up and then his name came up? Yeah, I was like, what? Wow, I didn't think that would happen anytime soon. But I do give Detroit credit. They don't give a shit what everybody else thinks. They go with what they believe, and credit to your team there.
He was at the Senior Bowl as well. That's what Brad Holmes said. He saw him there, and he said one of the first things he saw him do was block as a receiver. He goes, man, the way he attacked that,
tough.
I was sold.
I was sold, too, the first time I just saw him run routes at the Senior Bowl. And a few of the things he did at the line of scrimmage and coming out of breaks, right, where I was like, damn, he can really run routes. I did not think he was explosive as he was when he did his combine, right? That was like, oh, wow. Yeah. Right, but yeah, they see something there, and we'll see what they do with him. They're going to know how to work with a player like that, and I would not be shocked if he's got a nice little niche in that offense pretty quickly there, because he's, I think, pretty well schooled receiver and ready to go.
My expectations are pretty high, and it is pronounced TeSlaa.
TeSlaa.
Pete notes here. It's like I'm the first person. I mean, I've heard. I have to get that right as a Lions fan. Not TeSlaa, although it looks kind of like Tesla.
It does.
And I did think.
Right.
I was already thinking for nicknames if this guy's going to be like the next superstar for the Detroit Lions. Well, we had a big receiver back in the day. You know, I think TeSlaa is 6'4".
Right, he is.
I don't know what Megatron was, but I mean
about 6'5" and change.
Okay,
probably.
all right. So two big receivers, Megatron.
But they
TeSlaa?
They like Tesla in Ford country. I don't know.
Hold on. Electron. Electron is the nickname. If he goes off, not Cybertruck.
I like it.
Electron.
Okay, we can make that stick.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah,
he steps up, has some big plays. Not Megatron, Electron. All right, we'll see if it sticks there. All right, we got one more for you before we go to break. This one from A1. A1 Clay classed up 44.
Claced up 44. I don't know what Claced, C-L-A-C-E-D. I'm not sure what that is.
We'll just go A1. Hey, what up, A1? What's a day in the life for your diet? What do you eat on a normal day? Thanks for the awesome content. I've been a follower since day one with Bleacher Report.
Wow.
A1, so we need to know how to say your name if you've been with us for that long.
A1C, aced up 44. Maybe that's what it is.
Although if he's been a fan since day one, this is a true honor for him. If he's been with us for day one, seeing us struggle with the pronunciation.
He knows. He's like, this is par for the course for these guys, and it's always been par for the course, even for Simms, whether he was at Bleacher Report or NBC. Also, my diet was a thing on the old Bleacher Report. People were always fascinated with how I ate, right?
All right.
I was going through a run at Bleacher Report where I had rice and beans for lunch probably for 2 years straight. And I hadn't tried certain foods where it was a big deal, right? My host, who you know a little bit, Adam Lefko.
Yeah.
Simms has never had a banana. We're going to try to get him to have a banana. Simms has never had a bagel. We're going to try to get him to have a bagel, right? There was things like that. So it became a thing. Now, my normal day for eating right now, okay, I had to change the way I eat a little bit because I started to have some immune problems. I told you this, I think, in the past because I have no spleen. But about, I would say 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, I started to like, man, I'm getting sick like multiple times every winter. I'm getting cold sores, right? I was always like, if somebody was sick, I would catch it. And I had to go see somebody to kind of readjust how I eat and get my immune system right, blood levels, all of that. So, I mean, I take vitamins. But the one thing I was making a mistake with was early day fasting, right? I was one of those guys that was like, I'm not that hungry in the morning. I'm just going to drink some coffee, and then I'll kind of wait till lunch and eat something then and start to eat. And I ate a lot late in the day. That's not good for you. That's not. It stresses your adrenals out and your body out to where now it taps into your adrenals early on in the day, and you're not really giving your machine the fuel it needs to work, right? Yep. So it's tapping into the things you want, let alone now you're getting your calories as the day goes along, and now you get the majority of your calories later in the day to where now when you go to sleep, your body's still working and digesting and doing things like that, where it should be doing nothing and recovering and helping your immune system, right?
Dr. Simms
there's
here.
A little bit
Let's
for
go.
you. So I start my day every day with yogurt, a big bowl of yogurt and granola.
That's good.
Right? I mean,
protein in there.
Yeah, and fat. And I'm a bit fat and protein. After that, right? If I wasn't here and had to just make a little snack, like potatoes and bacon is my next thing I go off of, right? And I might have a little protein shake right after that too. Then I not long, do some work, whatever, and I try to get turkey sandwich, something like that into the mix, right? Maybe a little protein shake after that as well, right? Depends if I work out. If I work out, I'll do something, maybe have a little snack after I get done eating with a protein shake again, and then try to have a lighter dinner, little chicken with a green, right? Salad, green bean, whatever. But that's been my approach, and it's definitely helped. I've been sick a whole lot less. I don't have cold sores on my lips as much anymore, looking like I got herpes all day long everywhere. So it's all positive.
A well-oiled machine.
There it is.
Until we get to the smoky, drinky, but then we're back on.
That's why we got to do all the good things first, because we know there's some inevitable bad things that we're going to do later in the day or on the weekend. So I got to make up for it, okay? I got to be good the rest of the time.
Well, we're both 45, and so I've been doing the protein. I've been trying to maximize protein, fats, healthy fats.
Yeah, it's great for your brain and your burning.
Low sugar.
Right.
And I throw some fiber in there because I'm old.
You got to.
I think that if you just do that,
I agree.
That's super simple.
And don't eat too heavy late at night.
And don't eat too heavy.
I really learned. I really did. And I started to see it, too, and I actually feel it now.
Yeah.
I don't feel the same when I eat late at night the next morning. But that's one of my things. And then the other thing, too, at A1CL Aced Up 44.
Matt Bowen is his actual name. So that is his name outside of the handle.
Okay. So,
we can do that easier.
All right. So, but the other thing I'm a big believer in, Matt Bowen, is the infrared sauna, as you know. You've heard me say that before.
Yes.
But I go in the infrared sauna probably 5 to 6 days a week for about 45 minutes a time. And I do believe that is it's proven fact science that it helps your body detox, skin, organs, all of that.
Oh, in Finland, everyone has a sauna. They live by it. From what I understand, they're very healthy people.
They are.
I don't really know any of them, but I do understand that they are with us for a long time. All right, you know who else is with us right now?
Yeah.
John Lynch is with us.
Damn.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, you're talking to a former teammate, GM of the 49ers. That's next.
Michael.
Hey, how you doing?
My man, it's John Lynch.
Oh, my
You ready to be a Niner?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's awesome, buddy. We're so fired up to get you, man. We've been sitting here nervous about going up. I tried to go up, didn't work, but we got you here.
I appreciate
We
you.
are so damn fired up, man. You're gonna be great for us, man. And the entire building got behind this. So I'm gonna turn you over to Coach Shanahan. All right, buddy. Let's hear it from Mike.
Oh, there is the call to the newest 49er, and there's the man who made that call, GM of the 49ers, former teammate of Chris Simms, John Lynch.
Former teammate. Like, definitely, as I said before, when I got to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it was like, whoa, there's Warren Sapp. Whoa, there's Derek Brooks. And then it was like, whoa, there's John Lynch. And I had some fun before, and I said, man. And the first thing I noticed is that sledgehammer head he's got. And I said, no wonder he can hit people the way he can hit it.
Did he ever hit you in practice?
No, thank you. No, he did definitely not. But he was great to me in my rookie year. And John, thanks for coming on, man. We really appreciate it.
It's good to be on with you guys. That wasn't a very fun year, Chris. That was the year after we won the Super Bowl. And I actually thought we had a better team. And I remember the year starting off like that. We went up to Philly and just slaughtered them. And it was on. And it all kind of went bad when Tony Dungy came back to came back to Tampa. And it was that game we were up 3 scores with like 4 minutes left. And improbably they came back. I think back to that game, like 50 things had to happen for them to win.
Yes.
And they all did. And it was probably karma for what happened to Tony Dungy. But our season kind of went bad after that.
It was crazy. That was the 21-point comeback, Peyton Manning, Dungy's comeback, right? All of that. That also led to the Keyshawn Johnson, John Gruden little issue where he was released from the team. So we had no shortage of like drama in year one. And John was like my first lesson in, whoa, these guys take this serious, right? I got a completion as a rookie against the #1 defense, right, in all of the land in like one of my first practices. And I threw like a 20-yard out route, and I got it in between him and maybe Brian Kelly, our corner. And I remember we got done with practice, and he was hell-bent. John was hell-bent. He literally came over to me and was like, what'd you see? Like, what? How did you throw this? Like, what was it? And I was like, damn, like, it's that serious? Play 4 of the 7-on-7 period, he was coming at me. But that was my first experience in that I better be ready to go here because these guys are ready to go.
Jeez. It was like, how did you do that against us? That's what he was most confused about. What do you remember about Chris back in the day? Or was he too low on the totem pole to really develop too many memories about?
No, he wasn't. I'm thinking back just now as I was coming on, I was thinking back to that year. It really was a tough year because we had never really had a lot of drama. Coach Dungy kept things pretty, and then Grudes comes in and, he was tremendous in our first year. He got us where we had wanted to go and everything came together and it was so great. And we actually improved the next year. And like I said, we had such high aspirations. But it kind of unraveled, and I got injured in that same Indy game. I think we had a bunch of guys battle injuries, so it just really wasn't a fun year. But I remember Chris being this talented. Everyone knew who Chris Simms was, obviously on a great team at Texas, and a really, really talented player, and making great throws like the one he's talking about. And we were a prideful bunch. Like we didn't want, I think. Our standard was so high. We didn't want to pass completed on us. And so much goes into greatness. People talk about that defense and, there were Hall of Fame players on every level, Sapp, Brooks, Rondé, and I managed to get into it all as well. But I think the thing that separated us was our standard. Chris could tell you the way we ran to the football in practice. I've never seen anything like it. I tried to bring it over to Denver, but it just like the standard was so high. But when you do that every day, it becomes habit, and habits transfer over to the game. And we didn't have any choice because we had guys like Rod Marinelli. We'd start every day with pursuit drill where they toss the ball and everybody on the defense would run 50 yards. That they would put you in jail if you did that to your players now, because somebody would pull a hamstring. And Rod and Lovie Smith, they'd either have thumbs up or thumbs down. And that Tampa Heat and thumbs down meant everybody got sent back, and everyone was so pissed at the guy that wasn't sprinting. And so that's just kind of the way we were raised. We called it buck ball. If you lost 9-7, it was the defense's fault. And but we didn't know any better. And those were fun times.
They were. They taught me a lot. It was a special group. They were awesome. And did you know, like, as you were talking there and you put your 2 thumbs up, your reactions are on, and like fireworks went on behind you? That's a new element. I appreciate that element of the show. Thanks for spicing it up a little bit.
Because I did see it. I meant to do that too. It was a good point.
All right. So on that too, before we just get into some stuff about being a GM and behind the scenes, when you were getting done with your career, did you ever envision yourself being a GM? Was that on your radar to kind of attack that part of the football world?
Well, I tell you, people ask that a lot, and I did not know that. I knew I was going to get into broadcasting. That was something I had tried to set up during the end of my career. On bye weekends, go visit Fox, and on another bye weekend, go visit ESPN, do the studio shows, get to know the people, try to be like your dad, Chris. I think, you have this great, career, and you're blessed to play for 15 years. How do you parlay that? And really what I knew is that I was a pretty simple guy. I love my family. My faith was very important, and then I love football. And, there were a lot of people said, you should get into real estate. You should do this. And that wasn't of interest to me. I wanted to stay involved with the game that I loved. But I do know way back to when I was a kid. I was a Catholic school kid, and my dad and my mom were tough, old school parents. I remember it was Lynch, we're Lynches, we don't miss school. So if you were sick, you went to school. And I remember as a kid, the only time I missed school was draft day. My dad, it used to be on a Thursday, and my dad used to pull me out of school, and that was kind of our thing. We'd watch the draft, and I would fill out these old Sporting News deals, and I'd get it. My dad would print it up for me, and we'd try to predict. We were big Charger fans. Try to predict who the Chargers were going to take, and he'd pull me out of school to do the draft. So I always had an interest in team building. At the Bucks, I would spend time with guys like Rich McKay and ask a lot of questions as to the scouting process and all that. But really, I think that kind of went away when I started broadcasting games at the NFL on Fox. And then it got reignited when my buddy in Denver, we were living in Denver at the time. I had finished my career there. And John Elway took the leap into running the Broncos. And when he was running the Broncos and first stepped on, we were playing a lot of golf together. And he said, Johnny, you know, I need your help. And, you know, I want you to, you know, I don't know all our scouts. You know, I want to trust them, but I just don't know them. I trust your eye. Like, would you watch the safeties for me this year? And I'll never forget it. The year that I watched them, it was like Mark Barron and Harrison Smith. And I didn't know anything as to like how to do a write-up, but I just watched the film they gave me and I came up with a write-up, and I took a lot of pride in it, and I stacked the guys, and I ended up doing pretty well, to where the next year John said, why don't you take the entire DBs? And so I did that. The following, by the way, he didn't pay me anything for this. He thought, you know, and I didn't care, because I love ball. I love studying ball, and it helped me in my broadcast career. The next year he said, and this was the big leap, he said, come on into the draft process. And he just included me on the Broncos draft. So I was sitting in draft meetings, and that kind of ignited a fire that, like, if the right situation ever presented itself. Now, I always thought that would be like with Tampa, my old team, or the Broncos, if John got tired and like figured, why am I doing this? I'm John Elway. Like, then maybe I could step in. And then out of nowhere came this opportunity with the Niners, and, you know, we can get into how that happened, but it just happened. And so it was it always on my mind? No. I was happy doing what I was doing in broadcast, and I was kind of making my way there. But then this opportunity came out of nowhere, and I kind of shook up the Lynch family's life by taking an interview and then accepting.
Well, so. I think you've made a good decision. You're kind of doing okay there with your 2 Super Bowl trips and your bunch of NFC championships and the way the team has been built. But off of that, too, first off, I'd never heard that story, so that's really cool. I had no idea John Elway brought you under his wing like that and got you involved. Secondly, though, a little bit like, okay, like you said, you didn't write up reports. You weren't into scout lingo. I know you knew how to evaluate players. Wait, there's Simeon Rice. He's good. I know what a good DN looks like, or a 3 technique in Warren Sapp. But when you got to the 49ers, you become the GM. How do you lean on people with like some of the scout process and the grading and the reports? Like, how did you kind of go into that spot, kind of bring yourself up into that world to now you felt comfortable like, hey, I'm the GM?
Yeah, it's a great question, you know, because I knew, and John was very helpful. When I say John Elway, because he had done a similar thing. And he said, Johnny, you got to surround yourself with really smart people. You got to be confident. He's like, you know football. You know it as well as anyone, and you know how to communicate, and you know how to lead. But then on top of that, you got to know what you don't know, and you got to find people you trust. And so I was fortunate. Trent Baalke and the Niners had come on tough times, but Trent had set up an incredible scouting staff, and most of those guys are still here. And I think so many people come in that have been in this business and say, I got a clean house, and they haven't been successful. I got a clean house. That's not what Kyle and I did. You know, we wanted to give everyone an opportunity to prove themselves. And what we found right away was we had a number of really, really talented scouts, especially our college staff. They were dialed in and they were really good. And we did a lot of listening our first year, but we did a lot of telling them, this is who we are and this is who we want to be. We're the Niners, and here's what a Niner is all about. Here's what we're looking for at each position. One of the great exercises Kyle and I did in our first year, and Chris, you know Kyle, and he wasn't too happy with me when I said we were going to do it. I said, hey, we're going to bring this Stanford professor down. I had taken this class at Stanford when I was going back finishing my degree, and it was a class on the science of decision-making. Decision analysis was the class. This professor was named Burke Robinson, but one of the I guess sections of the class was developing a vision statement, and it talked about like the great vision statements of all time. And it was NASA, when they sent a man to the moon, their vision statement was so clear to the point. And so I was thinking to myself, because Kyle and I kept talking as we're watching film, how are we going to communicate to everybody who we want to be, what we want to be? And so the thought hit me. And so we brought Burke down, the Stanford professor in a Hawaiian shirt. He's this tall 6'4" guy and kind of a quirky guy, but really, really smart. Like one of those people that you say, that's one of the smartest people I've ever met.
Right.
And then I had to figure out how to get your buddy Kyle up there for hours, because I know it was going to take hours.
Yeah, right.
And all he wanted to do was watch film. We started with like 15 people in there, and it was just like throwing stuff on the wall. You know, who do we want to be? What do we covet? What are the traits we're looking for? And Burke is a very perceptive guy. He saw he was losing Kyle. Kyle didn't want to be there. I saw, and Burke said, all right, everybody out of the room except John and Kyle. And he said, like, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. What do you guys want to be? And this thing really started hitting traction. And we came up with a vision statement that was really clear and drew from the history of the Niners. It talked about talent and spirit, who we wanted to be. But my point is, we had these great scouts. We had to let them know who we were. And that was a great step. We brought them all in and we said, we came up with this thing and here's how we did it. And here's what we want in our players. But there was some, Chris, like a lot of those guys, I don't want to say resentment, but I felt like a rookie all over. They like I was proving myself to these guys. Yeah, and I think having some humility was the best way to do that. Tell these guys, I wasn't a road scout. I don't know what you guys do, but I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to come out there with you and find out. I do know football, guys. I'm confident in that. And I know how to lead people. And if you guys just have a little trust in me, we can do this thing. And fortunately, I had some guys who got behind that. And a lot of them are still here. And we're blessed to have them. And it works really well.
I mean, I love that story because you think football is just football, scouting, talent, how far can this guy throw? But it's like you had to tell a story. You had to tell a story for yourself, your organization, your people working for you, and what you believe in and what you're looking for. How often do you get frustrated that you have to talk to Kyle about something Chris said and go, I know Chris doesn't like this guy, or I know Chris loves this guy, but I've talked to a lot of our guys, and they don't have quite the same opinion.
You're funny.
I mean, one thing I figured out in this deal is you obviously can't listen to everyone, but Kyle listens to, he'll hear from a lot of people, but he knows what he wants. He's got a really good idea. I do believe, I tell people all the time, I think there's something to being a coach's son. And I think like Kyle, the coach, that's clear that he's picked up a lot of Mike's greatest abilities. I played for Mike for 4 years. I always marveled at how Mike would call me in after a practice, and he was so interested in both sides of the ball. He was the best head coach I had been around in terms of knowing everyone's job on every phase of football, offense, defense, special teams. But he had this uncanny ability to stand back there like Mike would, and he would see everything on the field. And he said, hey, in period 3 on play 12, I saw you started at 12 yards and came down to 8. Why didn't you come down to 5? And I was like, first of all, how the hell did you see that? And Kyle's similar. I'll stand out with her, and they see everything on the field. And I do think there's some level of like osmosis, being around his dad, carrying his dad's cords all those years that you picked up. And then there's an IQ level that's off the charts. But Kyle's been so fun to work with. They're a big part. The way we decided to do this was incredibly collaboratively. That's a buzzword, but I think we really do embody that. Like we haven't done things perfect. We've done a lot of things wrong. I think the one thing we've done is always had each other's back. And when the two guys that are charged with running the thing on football have that, then it tends to create an environment where the scouts and coaches work extremely well together. And when you have that, things like George Kittle in the 5th round, Fred Warner in the 3rd, Brock Purdy with Mr. Irrelevant. Is there some luck involved? Sure. Like, if they were that good, why'd you wait that long to take them? But we did have a plan with all those guys, and it came from a lot of people working together. And so I'm proud of the fact that through really good times, and then like last year was a really tough year, Kyle and I have consistently had each other's backs. And that doesn't mean we don't challenge each other. Chris, Kyle real well. It's not always pleasant. He's gonna blow up, and I'm fortunate. I played with guys like Warren Sapp, and so I'm like Okay, that doesn't bother me. Only a couple times a year I'll lose it, and 47 red will come out. You can't talk to me like that. I'm gonna break you in half.
That's awesome.
But largely I'm really proud that we've stuck together, and that's a hard thing to do because there's so much pressure in this business to win.
Definitely stuck together. I mean, I know how he talks about you. I know how you talk about him, and legitimately, like, I'm not bull crapping you here. Kyle might not even like that I'm saying this.
Yeah.
Like, when he brings up John, it's like, no, he's one of my best friends, right? So that's odd in itself. That the GM and the coach, it's like, no, forget about the football and the job together. Like, I like this guy a lot, and I think that's why you guys have had success. All right, so wait. On top of this is where I would love to just start into the process a little bit. You talked about it. It's a tough year last year, right? What point do you get into discussions about, okay, it's the end of last season, and start talking about the future of the team going into the offseason, right? That's what I'm interested in. I think our listeners would love to hear that. When do you start to have conversations about, man, I don't know if we can keep all these guys, and we got to trim the fat and do that? I would just love to know when on the calendar that kind of starts and how those conversations kind of develop in the early offseason.
Yeah, so there's two separate things. I think our job is upstairs, we call it here, because that's where the scout and football operations offices are, is more of a macro level where you're looking long term and, salary cap health, cash spend, roster, overall health of your roster. And Kyle's job is to go coach and win football games, but Kyle's much more involved, like come draft process, he's much more involved. And that's another thing that he learned from his dad, how to like run an organization. I think there's so many lessons that he learned. But at the end of a season, I think one other thing he learned from his dad is like you coach your tail off, you coach your ass off, and then you have to recharge your battery. And I always tell Kyle, like, hey, you just got done with a long exhaust, get out of here. I'll set the table for things. And it just started deep into last year. We thought we had a Super Bowl capable roster going in to the season last year. And we did some things, would we have a couple of those back? Maybe. But we were also in a position where we felt like things were lining up just from a roster. You obviously got to play the games that we had every opportunity. I'd put our roster up against anyone's. And so we did some things, and it didn't go well. We had a tough year. We had a lot of injuries. All those things are just excuses for not having success. We weren't proud of what happened. So was this an overreaction? No, it was. The York family has been incredibly supportive of us since we've been here in 2017 and allowed us to be really aggressive, and we have been. And at some point, you got to pay the piper. And rather than have like a multi-year reset, we felt like we had an opportunity, and I won't say a need, but like a want to say, because you look back and you say, okay, we've got an expensive roster. We have an aging roster. I think we were the oldest team in football at the end of last season. Like, now's the time to go do a retool, not a reset, not a tear up, because we still have that core of Hall of Fame players that are here. In fact, we just extended Kittle, and we're proud to have done that. We're talking to some other guys. But we needed to infuse some youth into our roster, and we thought it was a good opportunity. Those are hard decisions to make. There's some examples of some teams who have done a really good job of that. Buffalo, I think last year, quietly I thought Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott did a great job of doing that, and it was seamless. Helps when you have Josh Allen playing the way he played, but they still did that. And, the Rams did it a few years ago. And so, we felt like we needed to do that. We had like a record number of dollars leave our team. We had swing tackles making $16 million on the.
Seriously.
I mean, but it's tough. It's when you've been accustomed to going and grabbing that player, to see them leave and leave and leave. But we had been working for years to have a draft that had a lot of draft picks. So we'd comp picks, minority coaches. We've had a lot of success. So a lot of people have wanted our people, coaches or GMs that have left. have earned us a lot of third round picks, the incentive that the league gives. And so we had 11 picks this year. So it just kind of fell into place. And then, so once Kyle takes his vacation, then it's like, all right, dude, we got some tough conversations to have. And it's not easy to see your players walk away. And we're not wired that way. We're wired to add, to grow. And it was hard to take a step back, but it was really cool. Like, after our first 2 picks in the draft, we lost a lot of D-line. After our first two picks, we took the kid from Texas, Alfred Collins, and Kyle and I came in my office, which is adjacent to the draft room. The draft room's awesome, but you're in there with a lot of people. And sometimes Kyle and I, it's great, we can escape and come in here to my office. And he's like, dude, I think I just exhaled for the first time in 3 months because we had added two guys in Michael Williams and Alfred Collins that we felt were integral, and the guys we wanted. If it's not like openers that like you script a draft, but you try to like these. If it worked out perfect, we'd have these 2 guys, and we got those 2 guys, and so it was a long process. It's ongoing. It doesn't stop now, but that's kind of how like our little mini reset. And I say, mini reset at the end of this offseason, we may be a top 2 spinning team. So I don't know if Jed York would agree with the reset part.
Well, yeah, I know you two. You two were what I always say about the 49ers. You're psychos in a good way. That's what you are. So you're like, wait, retool. We're retooling to go to the Super Bowl this year is what we're doing.
It was
I know how you think, certainly. All right, so off of that, you get done with free agency, you got to make your moves, all that. Now the transition to the draft, right? And the transition to the draft, and I would just love to hear kind of how the organization makes that turn and kind of when you start to feel like your draft plan starts to kind of process and you start to see like how you want to approach it when it comes that first round of the NFL draft.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the scouts are the unsung heroes. These guys, they've been on like an Alfred Collins who's been at Texas for 5 years. They've been tracking this guy since he came into Texas. And so they've been watching a journey, and he's a guy who didn't really, he was playing behind grown men and didn't really have success till his last year. So everyone's got a different story. Michael Williams played his true freshman year on a really talented Georgia team. Most of these players have transferred a couple times. Like when I first started this, it's crazy. 9 years ago, we used to stop draft meetings. Hold on, he transferred. Why? What's wrong with him? What? Like now, I think it's the other way. If they haven't transferred, wait, what's wrong with him? He hasn't transferred.
Get out of there.
Is he not competitive? Is he not like? So it's changed, but so that is ongoing. On the year, I'm not big on I am what I am as a GM, and like I'm not going to try to do it. So I'm not one of these guys that's out every weekend scouting, primarily because Kyle, he likes having me around here, and he gets uneasy when I'm gone. And so like I make it count when I leave, and I try to hit. I ask our scouts every year, hey, where's a place I could really help by going? And typically it's pretty predictable where you're going to go, the schools with all the talent, or a school that maybe the head coach won't say a lot to scouts, but if a GM comes, he'll give you everything. And so, I try to be pretty targeted on where I go, when I go, but we have a great staff. So long story short, that process is ongoing. And then you get into like March, and then we start our draft meetings. And our coaches are extremely involved. And, Kyle got that from his dad, but then he got it from the way we wanted to do things. So our coaches, and we come up here for like a month, and we start with D-line, and we'll go ends on day 1, tackles on day 2, and our scouts present the area scout, each scout is assigned a position. So the guy who's got defensive ends will present his stack of guys, and we talk them through. And these are long, arduous meetings. Then the coaches, Chris Kasarik would present the defensive ends. Greg Scruggs, our assistant D-line, would present as well. And then that leads to conversation and film watching. And we watch each guy. And through that process that takes about 4 weeks, you kind of narrow it down, and you get, the board is constantly being reassessed. And then you come back and you have like a week of just excess times where you can tool around and try not to undo all the work you've done, over a month, but like you start to get pods of players. Okay, like if we're looking at the nickels, these 3 are there in round 3. Which one are we going to go in which order? And it's a really fun process. I love it because I think it's the greatest representation of our entire building coming together for one purpose that's really, really important. So that means scouting, coaching, R&D, analytics, medical is critical to this whole thing.
Right.
Our player engagement people, everyone's invested in the draft. And this year it was so critical with 11 picks. And for the first time in a long time, the last few drafts, we've just been adding role and complementary players. Mm-hmm. This year we actually had needs. These guys got to come in and play and contribute. And it made it really fun. It made it really exciting. It always is. And it's a process. It's really involved. It's exhaustive. But it's always, we have a legendary draft party every year where everyone it's a big thank you, not only to all the scouts and coaches, but to their families, because they haven't seen much of us. And we have a great time as an organization. And it's always really fun.
Yeah, it seems that way. Did you go into the process or the draft like we're going to go defense like the first 5 picks, right? Or did that kind of just organically happen like that?
Yeah,
the way it all went.
Because Chris has he brought this up a couple weeks ago. Every team likes to say we only draft best available. Right. But you think it's more of
I throw the challenge flag. I think people like to say that a little bit, and I'm like, I don't know. I think teams draft on need a little bit more than what they let on at times. But I found it interesting that you guys went 5 on defense right off the bat and got back to what I always say, kind of your roots of when you took over the team. Big, powerful defensive linemen. That's what made you guys so impressive when you went to your first Super Bowl.
No, you're right. Like I don't like talking about guys that we didn't take, but I will tell you that, yes, we did go, 5 consecutive defensive players, but like if Michael wasn't there, it likely would have been an offensive player. So at that point, you're picking that high. I do think you have to man, if this stacks up perfect, but you can't get too far away from who you deem the best player at that point, and so, there's some of that, but there are some tried and true teams that you can watch them and they're picking off their board and they're going to stay really true to it. We're probably more of a mix, like best available, but we hadn't had a lot of needs in a long time, but this year we had a lot of open spots. And so we had to fill those. And we were fortunate that it aligned in such a way that we could go get a bunch of defense and then start adding some guys that we thought could help us both now and into the future on the offensive side of the ball. And, right down to the last pick with a returner who we felt is really, really dynamic that can help us on special teams in Junior Bergen.
Yeah. So and in the clip we showed when we brought you on, you talked about with Michael Williams, we thought we might have to trade up with you or find something to happen there. What I'm also interested in is where do you get your intel, right? Where does that happen? How do you get your draft intel to what teams are interested in what players, right? What made you feel like you might have to trade up to get Michael Williams and make some of those phone calls?
Yeah, that's an interesting process, and the fact of the matter is nobody knows. Nobody's calling. I'm good friends with Mickey Loomis, but I'm not going to call Mickey and say, who are you taking at 9? I think one of the just truths about this thing is you try to limit it and you try to tell people, hey, your job's on the line if information gets out of here, but people tend to talk and there's reminders going on all the time. It can be something innocuous. It can be telling your wife who tells her friend who then tells somebody, well, I heard this, but you try to be careful, but stuff gets out. And I think with Michael, we felt like that there was a good chance the Saints would take him. I think we probably ran into a situation where the one player was there in Kelvin Banks, a Texas guy, offensive tackle, that he's probably the one guy I think you learn after that if not him, they would have taken Michael, but Banks was there and they didn't expect him to be there.
Right.
So it's things like that. But, I don't know, the last couple of years, early on, we made a ton of trades. I think we're learning to be a little more patient and just let things come to you. And if you get a really good deal, you can't refuse, or if there's really someone you want. But over time, we've learned we probably made our best decisions when we let stuff come to us.
Right.
Do you have when you get a call from another team, because I'm never going to be in this room, so I'm fascinated by the draft. When you get a call from other teams, they're offering you a trade, the clock is ticking down. You don't have a whole lot of time to operate. How do you go about making those decisions and making those decisions quickly on if this trade is worth it, the value, and all that?
Oh, thank God for computers, because I don't have that mind that can do all that in the head. But I mean, it's as easy as clicking, and then you have your trade chart, you have the league trade chart. There are some gnarly, like, close calls. Last year, in the 4th round, we took a receiver, Jake Cowing, and we were having trade discussions at that. So we got down to like a minute, 45 seconds. And then it was going to be Jake Cowing or a linebacker. And, Kyle and I like listening to our scouts and like, at this point, and so I'm like, Kyle, we got to go. And he's like, no, we got 45 seconds. So I said, okay, fellas, like, show of hands, like, who likes linebacker, who likes Cowing? And it was like really, really close, like right down the middle. And I'm like, Kyle, like, we're going. And he's like, hold on, we got plenty of time. And 30 seconds. And he goes, all right, like, here's why the receiver would be important. Here's why the linebacker. Let's another show of hands. And it's like, now there's 20 seconds. And then he goes, okay, one more time, throw him up. And like, I get the decision. I say, turn it in with like 7 seconds. And our guy, Justin Chabot, the scout, like, I give him a hard time because he's typing like this. It didn't make me like,
that's great.
And I think we went down to like 2 seconds and we got the pick in, and you can like forfeit your pick.
Right.
So,
Right.
That was the closest call we've ever had. So that was a little hairy. And it's hard. I'm much more comfortable now. And it's like performing in front of 80,000 people, but the draft sometimes, like, your boss is sitting there and like, it's like, this idiot. Can you make a pick? You got 2 seconds left. Really? You came that close? And so 9 years later, it's like you get comfortable. But like the first couple of years, Kyle and I would come in here a lot because sometimes you need to say stupid things to generate conversation, and it's not real comfortable doing that. And with your bosses that you don't know watching you. Now, fortunately, we know them really well, so we're not quite as nervous about those.
I hear you. Sometimes you got to say it out loud. We say that on the podcast. Sometimes you say it out loud and you go, wait, that didn't sound right when I said it out loud. I don't think we want that player or do that right there. All right, roughly round 1, how many calls do you think you took as far as just like trade, whatever, GMs calling, trying to make moves, just like a guesstimation? What do you think?
Probably like, on draft day, probably like 8 to 10.
Okay.
But I think, when I first got in 9 years ago, trades weren't like as common as they are now. There's kind of this new breed of GMs. Our first year, I don't want to say I didn't know what I was doing, but we were really active trading and like just going for it. And like, we like that player, let's go get him. And, fortunately we had people that kind of kept us. But I would say now, because the league is trading more, a lot of the stuff goes into setting it up the week before. Hey, just know that we may be wanting to come up to 11. So, and then you kind of say, okay, send over what you would do. So I can tell you, like, okay, we wouldn't entertain that. Like, you're going to have to improve this part of it. We're interested in more this year, because sometimes people are saying next year.
Right.
So you do a lot of like work to set it up, and then that happens those early second round picks are really coveted, because the first round has happened. People can sleep on it, reassess their boards. And so there's always a lot of activity for those. And then like the draft breaks out, and then it's like all hell breaks loose, and you're getting calls from everywhere. It's actually really, really fun.
I bet it is. I can't imagine. It's probably a totally different adrenaline rush compared to playing, but still like very equal in a lot of ways as far as what it brings to you that way. All right, like I don't want to keep you too long. We've had you here for 40 minutes. You good for like 2 or 3 more questions?
Sure.
You sure?
I'm good.
All right.
Yeah.
One right off the bat of just kind of what you said, like a little bit of like, you're talking about about Kyle going back and forth with players. How about the NIL? We've heard like love of football's become more of a tiebreaker with teams this year now because of that. Would you say that holds true in your organization and some of the conversations you guys had?
I would tell you, I think it came from me playing for 15 years. If you listen to my Hall of Fame speech, it's one of the things I talked about. What makes football so great? When we did that vision statement when we first got here 9 years ago, the first thing it says under 49er spirit, football passion, do they love it?
Right.
So that's been something right at the top of our list forever. And the reason being, I know how difficult it is. There's nothing easy about the NFL. It's hard. And it hurts, and like it's tough, and so you can't have people. I've maybe Chris and Ahmed been around 3 or 4 players that didn't really love football, but they loved something else. They loved money, they loved women, or and felt like that could help them get that. But typically, like down to 99.9%, you better love it. You better love something that it provides for you. Because it's really, really difficult. And that's why it brings people so close together. It's why it brings fans. I think they see that. Players certainly do. So, but yeah, with NIL, like one interesting thing, we went up to Oregon this year as a staff. A bunch of us did. And I was fascinated with that coach up there, Dan Lanning.
Yeah.
Now he's got a pretty good setup with Phil Knight, but like everyone's complaining about NIL. He's telling me how great it is, and he's just, I think he's an optimist, which I tend to be. And one of the things he said to me is, John, I think like you got to change your perspective because everyone's complaining about this thing. But I think one thing you guys should value is that you get to see how guys are going to handle money, because usually those pitfalls. Some guys, that's what is their downfall. They get this money. They don't know how to handle themselves. They're out every night, or they have stress because people are calling them asking for money, or they made a bad investment. He goes, now a lot of that can happen. They've been making money for 3-4 years. Sometimes these guys come in making less their rookie year now than they were supposed to. We talk to free agents now, undrafted free agent. It used to be a big deal to say, hey, we'll give you a $250,000 bonus. Now they're laughing at us. Like, dude, I made $3 million at Texas.
Right. Damn it.
So, I thought that was really good advice from Dan Lanning that like you do. And I think you always have to be looking for the positive in situations. And we do get to see these guys a little more battle tested. Okay. They've had the things that come with success. How are they going to handle it?
Yeah. That's interesting. That's the first time I've heard anyone bring it that way, actually.
Well, Chris, we were talking about it before you were on, John, and you were talking about the quarterbacks and you're wondering if you see it some more in the quarterbacks where you get the more sense of entitlement, like we've arrived before you've actually arrived. We saw some quarterbacks fall in the draft.
Yeah,
more
Quinn
than
Ewers is specifically who we were talking about.
That might be a position specifically, John. I don't know, that you can see what money and what fame and what you're the guy means to a college quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, I remember talking to one coach who said, what I love about this guy, he's such a great leader. In fact, he takes his receivers every year and his linemen on this, like NFL quarterbacks who take their guys on retreats. And I'm like, wait, sometimes I'm a little slow. I'm like, wait, how's he do that? Oh yeah, he makes $4 million a year. So it's a different world. It sure is. And you can sit back, complain about it, or you can say, hey, it's the way it is, and we got to make the best of it and embrace it. And that's what we've kind of decided to do with a little assist from Dan Lanning.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I don't want to keep you anymore. I don't. You've been so generous. I want to ask one question on the way out the door, right? I got to, as a journalist for NBC here, ask you about Brock Purdy and just where that stands, right? And where we are as far as that going here through the offseason and kind of when you might expect something to get done.
Yeah, I can tell you, we've made it a practice not to talk about negotiations, and that goes way back to when I was playing. I felt like that was my business, and I didn't want the world knowing it. So I've always been very sensitive to that.
Yeah.
But what I will tell you, can tell you, is we're having really good, positive discussions. When it gets done, I'm not sure. Hope sooner rather than later, but Like hope is not a strategy. So we're making progress. We've had good discussions. I'm looking out here because our players are starting to arrive for their day of work. Brock's out there and doing a tremendous job as all our players. Like, after a year like that, it was important. And Kyle did a great job saying, guys, when we built this thing, when we had our success, like we had 99% of our guys here in the off season. It's voluntary. We can't make you come, but man, it'd be cool if everybody came. And we had I think everybody but one player here when we kicked off this year. So we've got a motivated, focused team. It's kind of fun being we didn't win, the Super Bowl in the past, but I think we've always been a team that people have put up there. Hey, this is the favorite. Now we get to sit back and maybe hunt a little as opposed to being the hunted. And I like that. I like having a little doubt.
We're
little bit of pissed off
you.
in our,
Right.
little doubt. And that's a good thing for us. And our guys are responding as such.
Definitely. We joked like a few weeks ago going, they don't even have a full 22 starters on their team yet, right? But I know this crew out there, you're chippy as hell. I know Shanahan's chippy as hell. And I know you guys are going to be a force to be reckoned with, and you've done a lot of good things. And all you got to do, and I know I sound like a homer or whatever, but yeah, the culture that you've created with Kyle, it is special out there. All you got to do is go out there to a practice and see how much guys love flying around the football field, doing that type of stuff. And I think that's a credit to you and Kyle and what you've done there, John. And I appreciate you coming on and kind of sharing the behind the scenes stories of how an NFL team works, man. I appreciate it a lot.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I'll leave you guys with one thing. You just mentioned culture, and I'll never forget. I came up, like this whole thing came together, and Kyle said, "I want you to meet this guy named this dude named Jed." That was our owner, and so Jed's going to be calling you. So Jed called me. He said, "Would you come up and talk about this job?" And so I did. I came up. He flew me up. I met at his house. We had dinner. And then he said, "Hey, would you fly cross country, meet Kyle, who was in Atlanta at the time, getting ready for the Super Bowl?" We fly cross country. I get interviewed going cross country. And then we sit with Kyle. And I think like the third question was, how do we build culture? Like, our culture is one of greatness here. It's Lombardi trophies, but what's culture to you guys? Kyle said one of the coolest things ever, because sometimes you know what it looks like, but it's hard to verbalize. And he said, "Jed, real simply, culture is the people you surround yourselves with. And we're going to surround ourselves with great people, and our culture will take care of itself. Like people who love football. And that's one thing we've always adhered to. And we've had a lot of people who represent that. So now we just got to go do it. And that's the fun part.
Yep, I know. We're all excited to watch it. We are. You've got still some stars in your team, and what? What are you going to say?
Well, I think that's the way that the Beverly Hillbillies, remember that show? I think that's exactly the way it started. Let me tell you about this guy named Jed.
It's such a Kyle thing to call the owner dude. Let me introduce you to this dude named Jed. That would be a Kyle thing to do specifically.
Is he number one fan or something? He owns the team.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Only the guy that's going to be our boss. All right. I do appreciate it. Go out there. Get those 49ers better. When you do see Kyle, punch him in the arm for me and say, "Hey, it's from your friend Chris." All right. He told me to do it. Yeah. But thanks so much, man. And best of luck to you guys.
All right, fellas. You guys be well.
All right. You too, buddy. See you, man.
Thank you.
John Lynch. We'll take a quick break. We'll wrap it all up. John, I mean, what a good guy.
He's my buddy. He's a professional, and he loves football, and that's why the 49ers, like you said, have been creeping towards the top of the NFL for the last 6 and 7 years.
100%. Right. All right, we're back right after this. All right, one more question before we wrap it up. This comes from CD Mike. Says, after the draft, who are your offensive rookie of the year and defensive rookie of the year favorites? Love the pod. Homie, thanks. Chris? I was going to say Mike, but then his name's Chris.
His name's Chris.
CD Mikes.
That's CD Mikes.
Is Mikes his last name then?
Maybe.
Chris Mikes.
D. Mikes.
Chris D. Mikes.
Chris Mikes. Maybe.
Okay. Chris. So
appreciate it, homie.
We'll take a look at the rookie of the year for on the defensive side from DraftKings here. And the favorite is Abdul Carter. Don't know what number he will be, but the number is plus 250 for him to be defensive rookie of the year. Our guy, John Lynch, happy to know that Michael Williams on the list. A little farther down, plus 1,600. What do you think when you look at those odds?
Well, I like guys that are put in spots to succeed, right? I mean, yes, Abdul Carter, we know, is certainly going to be one of the favorites. I understand Travis Hunter. But you go to like a guy like Mike Green, number 3 on that list. I go, well, yeah, there's a lot of good defensive players there. They're a good defense. They can't just focus on him. He could be a guy that certainly carves out a role. Michael Williams of the 49ers.
Yeah.
Again, it's like, wait, there's Nick Bosa on the other side. There's Fred Warner still. They do still have some other good D linemen. He's going to, for the first time in his life, be put in a spot to go, wait, I can get wide. I just have to rush the quarterback. I don't have to do like these 7 different things Kirby Smart used to ask me to do every play, right? So I think it's going to benefit him that way. The other guy that I would throw out there that I think, again, people want to hate on it and whatever, is Shamar Stewart is going to be the starting defensive end for the Cincinnati Bengals. He is going to be. Right? And he'd be a guy, again, if you got some extra change in the couch or whatever, that I would look at a little bit to take a chance. I know people look at sacks and everything like that, but yeah, those are the ones that kind of jump out to me a little bit here.
I wouldn't mind plus 1,800 for James Pierce because the Atlanta Falcons go, we'll show you. Well, everyone talking about that pick.
No doubt, right.
Part of it.
We like the player. We weren't sure about the value of the trade, right? So that's what's exciting. And a little bit like we just talked about with like Mike Green, you go, wait, they're a pretty good defense. They got a lot of things there. And he'll be their marquee pass rusher almost right away. And they know how to move guys around and be chaos creators there to where he won't always be traditional pass rusher and all that. So I think those are some good ones, at least some food for thought as we go forward here.
DraftKings Sportsbook is your home for live betting. New customers can bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets instantly.
And I am not where I need to be, so I am going to get there now and just download the app and use the promo code Unbuttoned when you sign up.
DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. That is the new copy for the DraftKings Sportsbook.
I don't know where I am. I don't know where I am. Just download the app.
They will incorporate that. All right, so we have more Ask Me Anything questions. We will save those right now because we had such a good time talking with John Lynch. We've already hit our limit on time.
Yeah, John Lynch went above and beyond right there.
Absolutely.
I mean, it really was. That was awesome of him to do that in the first place, and let alone to take the time to flush out some of those questions and really take us behind the scenes and how things kind of get unpacked and how things get done in an organization. I really appreciate that of John Lynch.
Really cool.
Like I said, awesome football player. It was truly my first experience of like, whoa, they're serious. Like, I threw one completion.
I love that
and
story.
he was like, he was annoyed.
Yeah.
Like they were all annoyed that I had as a rookie just a few little completions against this first team defense. It pissed them off. And that's when I was like, uh-oh, these guys are serious. I better start getting more serious too.
Well, you know what he said too? You know what he said too about the standards too. And I read a lot about that.
Yeah.
And like most successful people, it's like, it's good to have goals, right? It's like, I aspire to this. I aspire to this. But really what separates great people or organizations from just kind of average or whatever is the standards, right? It's just like, no, we have a personal standard that we will not fall below.
The
it's
daily
the floor.
approach.
It's the daily floor
right.
that we will not drop below. And
yes.
so he articulated that perfectly.
That's right. And that's like what he talked about. He grew up in it. And I saw it, especially in the defensive side. He named off all the players, plus Rod Marinelli and Monty Kiffin, and Raheem Morris was there, and Mike Tomlin was there, and Joe Barry, who's been around the NFL as a D coordinator and other things. So we had all these guys just constantly pushing the players, be great, be better. What? We talked about this detail. Why didn't you do this? Blah, blah, blah. And then they took it upon themselves and their pride to take that out on the field and have that together as a team too. They were a special group. It was really cool for me to be a rookie and be a part of that, and be a part of it where, like he said, we went into the year people going, they're going to go undefeated. They're going to go undefeated and win the Super Bowl. That's what it's going to be. And then to see how they handled the stress and some of the scrutiny and how things kind of went off the rails, right? Guys like John Lynch didn't blink. Rondé Barber, Derek Brooks, Sapp, they all just kind of, hey, kept playing, keep working, here we go. And that was amazing for a young player like myself to see. Like it is for me to watch you at work every week, because you're such a professional. You really are, Mr. Host of the Kentucky Derby. All right, everybody, I hope you all enjoyed that podcast. We'll be back on Wednesday. We got more guests. Teron Armstead's coming on Wednesday.
I didn't even know
right?
that.
We're going to talk about some O-line stuff. Yeah, well, you're only here part-time these days, so we just got to fill you in as we go.
I was out of town.
All right, so you got to spend one more day with a horse's ass like me, okay? You'll have to deal with that. But seriously, thanks for coming in.
Absolutely.
Long weekend for you. Homies, you know where to find us. Subscribe, rate, review. We'll be back Wednesday. Peace out, homies. Clap it up.
Clap it up.
Yo, homies, what's up? Thanks for watching Chris Simms Unbuttoned. And just because the weather's warm doesn't mean football ain't still on our brains right here.
We are still working, so smash that subscribe button. We got all the training camp news, preseason news, everything up until kickoff night.
Thanks for watching. And again, remember to hit that subscribe button. Peace out, homies.